All right, welcome back. Let's talk about scales, particularly major scales. But before we get to any kinds of scales, we need to first talk about what a scale is. And in order to talk about what a scale is, we actually have to take 2 steps back. So first thing we want to learn about today is something called a tonality. So a tonality is just like when you hear a song, it's the thing that feels like it's home base. It's the resting point of the song. So if I play something for you like... everyone in the whole entire universe was waiting for that note right there because I created a tonality of B flat. Now, hopefully if you're up to this lesson already, you already know that that one is called a B flat. So I'm not going to go over the names of the notes anymore, but that one's a B flat. And when I played those other notes, it told you that this is going to be the home base. And no matter what else I did in the song, you would always be waiting to hear that B flat. So if I went, you'd still be hearing that as the home base. So that's the importance of a tonality. It's like during the whole entire song, it's the note that everyone is waiting to get back to. So if we talk about a tonality, then the next important thing after a tonality is going to be a key. And so the key is the collection of notes that make up a tonality. So I can make up the tonality of B flat just by playing these 7 notes in a row. So B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. Don't worry about what the letters are, but just trust me that this set of notes right here, no matter what happens, if I play these notes repeating in any octave, those notes, and I don't play any of the ones that aren't being played, like these ones right there. If I avoid all of those and only play these ones, you'll learn how to do it in a second, then that's always going to lead all of my listeners back to B flat, even if I play a song you've never ever heard before. So I could play just any songs. I'll make up something that's never been played before. So... and even though no one's ever heard this song before, everyone's waiting for that B flat because I'm following the rules of this is how you make the tonality of B flat, is by playing these notes because these notes make up the key. Okay, we're finally ready to say the word scale. So a scale is kind of stupid, actually. A scale is just playing the notes of a key in order. That's a scale. It's playing the notes of a key in order. Now, the truth is, scales never come up in music in real life. The only place I can really think of is, like, there's a song that goes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that's actually playing the notes of a key in order. And there's another one that in the other direction. It goes, joy to the... So those are the only 2 examples I can think of where you actually play a scale in real life. However... they're really important to work on because just like, 2 plus 2 is, what? You didn't have to go like, well, I don't know, you take 2 and then you add 2, 1, 2, 3. It's just something you have memorized because it comes up so many times in life that it's just an important thing to have memorized. Scales are kind of the same thing. Even though they're not going to show up, it's not necessarily something you'd have to memorize. You could just figure it out each time you needed to. If you practice them, you're just always ready for every key, every tonality, every song, because every song has a tonality and a key. Then every tonality, every key, every song, you're just ready. If you've been practicing your scales, you know what the notes are. That's why we practice scales, even though they really never ever show up. It's just like we work on songs, we work on playing fun stuff, and then separately we work on scales, because if you know all your scales, you know your keys, you know your tonalities. We're finally ready to actually play a scale. Today we're going to start with the one that's called a major scale. It's the most important one. It's the scale that all the other scales are built on top of. So if you do this is like, this lesson right here is like 80 or 90% of all of the scale work you're ever going to have to do, and we're finally ready to start playing some notes. Let's not use B flat, though, because I already gave you the answer to that one. Let's start on D. So go ahead and play a D right now, and I'm going to call that one the root, and I'm going to use an R to say root. So That one's going to be the root. Now, to make a major scale, I'm going to call that one number 1 because it's the first note in the scale. From there, we're going to go up a whole step. So that is 2 half steps. So don't go to the next note over because that'd be a half step. But the next note over is going to be a whole step. So I'm going to use a W for a whole because even though it sounds like H, it starts with a W. So whole note, or whole step right there. Sorry, not a whole note, a whole step. So root, then we go up a whole step. And those are the first 2 notes of our major scale. Cool. There's only 7 notes total. So we're already, we've got a great start on it already. So from there, we're going to go up another whole step. So not that note, but that one right there. So we go from there to there to there. Those are the first 3 notes of our major scale. From there, we're going to go up a half step. So just the next note over. Whatever note you're on currently, just go to the next note over. And that's going to be the 4th note in this scale, in this major scale. Then we're going to go up a whole step, and then a whole step, and then a whole step. And that's all of the notes of the scale. I'll go through those with you. So we're going to go whole step, whole step, whole step. So from here, this is the 4th note. We'll go up a whole step. Half step, whole step. Okay, that's the next one. That's the 5th note. And then from there, we're going to go up, not a half step, but a whole step. And then from there, not a half step, but a whole step. There we go. That's all of the notes of our major scale. And it should sound like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Now, if you want to start this whole thing over again, like that right there, all of those notes again, if you did it all right, this is the way you can check yourself at the end. If you did it all right, if you go up a half step, you should land on the 1 again, the one that you started the whole thing on. So if we've played all of those, if we go up a half step right there, we ask ourselves, is it the same note that we started on? If the answer is yes, we did it all right. And these are all of the notes of the D major scale, which makes up the key of D, which means no matter what you play, as long as you play some of these notes in any octave and you don't play the other notes, then whatever song you play, people are going to hear D as home base because that's the tonality you've created by playing that key, by playing that scale, by following this pattern. Okay, so that applies to every instrument. Let's talk about the stuff that applies just only to piano. The truth is, when I'm playing in the key of D, I'm not thinking root, whole, half, whole, half, even though I could. By the way, that's just 2 holes right there, and then 3 holes right there separated by halves. So when I think about like the formula for a major scale, like I'm teaching it to someone like you, I'm thinking root, 2 holes, 3 holes, and then there's halves in between. So 2 holes and then 3 holes. That's what makes up a major scale, starting on any root at all. We've started on D here. But the truth is, I'm not thinking about any of that when I'm playing. I'm only thinking about that when I'm teaching. When I'm playing, I'm just thinking about like this pattern here. That like D, I'm thinking about D. So as I'm playing and I'm playing my scale, I might think about like I've just passed a D right there, and then I just passed a D right there, and then I just passed a D right there. So I'm thinking about those Ds as I pass them, but the rest of it is just something that I would call a geography. Like if I'm looking out looking out of my car, I'm looking out over the plains and the mountains and stuff. And if in my mind, the key of D looks like D, D, and it's got a little peak right there, and it's got a peak right at the end. That's the key of D in my mind. D's are important, and then that's my geography, and that's how I memorize it, and that's how I play all the notes really fast, because I'm just playing the geography. I'm not actually playing notes. And if you look in your piano packet, you'll actually notice this thing right here. It'll tell you all the names of all of the keys. This is D major right here, and it tells you that you got an F sharp in there, and you got a C sharp in there, but you'll notice off to the side, that right there, that's the way my mind thinks of the key of D. If you just like drew that out for me, you're like, what key is this? D. There's no other key that looks exactly like that. There's one that looks like that one right there, and that one would be the key of D flat. The key of C is actually the most boring one. It just looks like that. C is actually one of the harder scales to like play, because no matter what, like if you get off by a note, there's no way to know because there's no geography. There's no hills and stuff. There's no valleys. So that's actually, even though it's the easiest one, it's all white notes. Like, yeah, that was the key of C right there. But it's one of the harder ones to play for me to keep track of because there's no geography there. D's a really cool one to play. Let's see here. What's another one? E's actually really convenient. My favorite one is one of the hardest ones to play. One of the ones that everybody hates is this one right here. But the reason I like it is it just fits my hand perfectly. That's going to be a thumb, and that's going to be a thumb, and all my fingers are always up on black notes. So I play a B, and then bam, my fingers are up, and then by the time it's time for my thumb again, then right there, my thumb is right there, and so my fingers are always up and my thumb's always down, which is the way that my hand is created anyway. My thumb is shorter than the rest, so it's convenient that in the key of B, it's just the easiest thing, even though it's got tons of sharps and it's terrifying to most people. It's one of my favorites because it's just, it fits my hand perfectly. My thumb is short and it gets all the white notes, and my fingers are long and it gets all the black notes. Now, you might be asking yourself, wait, where am I supposed to put my thumb? How am I supposed to know? Okay, let's review real quick. I'm going to answer that question in just a second, but let's review. Already, we've talked about tonalities and keys and scales, and why we're going to practice scales, why they're important, why they're sometimes unexpectedly easy or unexpectedly difficult. And so now we're going to talk about where to put our fingers. But I should point out, we've just talked about 12 major scales. This is like at least a year or 2 or 3's worth of work if we just practiced those scales, playing the key of B, playing the key of B flat, playing the E flat major scale, playing the E major. We've got a scale that starts on C, one that starts on C sharp, on D, on E. All of these could be home base. That's 12 different, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different keys before it starts over again. That's a lot of work. If you like worked on one a month, that would be an entire year of just scales doing one a month. That's the bad news. The good news is if you did one a month, in a year, you would know all the scales. So like in 1 year, you could know all the major scales that you'll need to know from here until forever. For the whole rest of your life, you know all of your major scales. That's something that not even a lot of professional musicians can say, that they know all of their scales. And it's just because they didn't practice them. So if you just practice like one a month, you can know all of them in a year, but that's a year's worth of work right there. So before we talk about fingering, there's tons to do here. Don't feel like you've got to do it all at once. Just take one little tiny scale, work on it for a while, and eventually you'll be ready for your second scale, and we'll get through this stuff together. Okay, so this next page here is just all of the scales all on one page. If you want to print that out, that might help you practice all of those right there. Or if you don't want to print that out, you can just come back to this video right there and look at all of those. Those are all of the major scales, all 12 major scales, the finger patterns, the geographies for all of those. And then down here is where we're going to take a look at our fingering. So this fingering right here is going to apply to all of our major scales, and then your hand numbers are just like those right there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The thumb is going to be 1. Pretty much don't use your 5. That you're really safe if you just play through all your scales and never use your pinky finger. It's always a dead end, because if you ever play that one, you can't go past it. There's no way to get there conveniently. There's no way to get past your pinky. So pretty much don't use it. Play with 4 fingers when you're playing scales. When you're playing other songs, use your pinky, that's fine. But when you're playing scales, you want to be able to keep on moving up or move down, and so that just means your pinky's pretty much dead to us. But over here, these are all of the right hand finger trails is what I'm calling them, because we're going to like try to find the trail through the geography and stuff like that. So here we go. Starting on, let's go to that D one that we had before. It's going to start with 1, so that's your thumb. And then it's going to go 2 and then 3 for E and F sharp. So we've done 1, 2, 3. And at this point, you need to know like what the next note is. I've listed it for you here, but it's really helpful if you can like kind of see it ahead of time. So you can see that it's going to go up there, and it's going to go up there, and it's go up there, up there. So kind of try to memorize like the geography as you're looking at the piano. If you tell me we're playing in the key of D, I already like map that geography onto all the notes. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to start back over again by tucking our thumb, our 1 finger underneath, and hitting that next note. That's that G right there, and it looks like that. And as I play it, I want to make sure that my timing is nice and even, because otherwise, if it's not even, then my scale's going to end up sounding like this. You can hear like the little, even if you close your eyes, you can still hear like those little chunks. So you want to make sure that you practice it nice and smoothly, getting that thumb underneath. So you can't, if you close your eyes, you can't even tell what my fingering is. So you can't hear where I'm switching fingers. You could there, unless you look, you can't really tell where my fingers are switching. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then at that point, we're going to cross underneath, and we've got 1 again. And pretty much all of these scales are going to be some combination of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So 3s and then 4s and then 3s and the 4s. In some cases, they're split up weird. Like this one starts on a 3, the E flat starts on a 3, and then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3 starts it back over again. So they, even though they're all 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes they start in weird places, and that's just something you gotta memorize. But you will memorize it because you're gonna work on like 1 a month, and then you're gonna get that thing down, and then for the next one, you're gonna work on E flat, and you'll just get used to every time you come to E flat. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then back down, it's the same thing, just backwards. So if we go back to the key of D, we're gonna go starting at the very top. I'm starting over here on this end this time. It would be 1. We cross over with our 4 finger for 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 3, 2, 1. And same thing. All the scales are going to be some version of 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. That's a whole lot of stuff. And that's only half of it. Because over here, we got all the finger trails for the left hand as well. So you've got left hand fingering, which is kind of the same rule. Don't use your pinky, but unfortunately, the numbers don't match the right hand perfectly. So work on the right hand for, you know, however long, a week or 2 or something. And then maybe work on the left hand and eventually maybe put them together. But you don't have to. If you can do your scales with your left hand and then you can do your scales with your right hand, you're set. You're perfect. You're beautiful. You've got it all down. These are all the major scales. Now, there are other times where we will alter scales. So we might like play let's say a C scale. But then we might like say, but I want this thing to sound like darker or scarier. So we're going to take the 3rd note and we're going to lower it. So we play the same exact thing, but every time we get to the 3rd note, we'll lower it. That's kind of the concept of the other scales. All the other scales that exist are the major scale, but tweak this little part of it, or tweak this little part. Try this one and this one. That's where all the other scales come in, but it all starts with the major scales. So start with the major scales. Let me know if you need any help at all, but that's a whole ton of work right there. Start on any part of it that made sense, and let me know if you need any help. And until next time, go explore, mess up, have fun, rock on, friends.